Good morning, everyone. Today, topic of our lecture is organotransition compounds with multi-central bonds. We are continuing this topic, and we will discuss triheptoallyl complexes. Earlier the triheptoallyl complexes were not known to us, but when they were discovered, it was a remarkable discovery in the coordination chemistry. Because the very important feature of allyl complexes is they can behave as mono as well as triheptoligand. So what is allyl group? This CH2 double bond CH2. Here the carbon is having one free valency, and from this part it can attach to any other alkyl group or any metal atom. So this is the allyl group, and the important thing is it is having a dual nature, dual character, that it can behave as a mono and triheptoligand. So when it is attached to the metal atom from the carbon here, this will behave as a monoheptoligand, and in the resonating structure of the allyl group, when all the three carbons, because the position of this double bond is not fixed, the allyl group can exist in different resonating structures. So you can say that the pi electrons present between these two carbons, they are not fixed, and they are rather delocalized over all the three carbons. So when a pi bond is formed with the metal atom, a multi-center bond is formed, and in that case it behaves as a triheptoligand. So in this diagram you can see this is the allyl group, and it is attached to the metal. So in this part it is behaving like a monoheptoligand. Only one carbon is attached to the metal. But here you can see these are the two resonating structures, and actually this double bond can be shifted here as well. So in these two structures you can see the metal atom is not only attached to this carbon, but also it is bonded by the pi electrons here, and therefore in this example the allyl group is behaving like a triheptoligand. So all the three carbons are taking part in the bond formation, and the position of the pi electron is not fixed. So whenever it is behaving like a triheptoligand, the electronic contribution of the allylic group will be 3 electrons. How it will be so? Because it is getting 2 electrons from this bond, the direct sigma bond, and one from the pi bond. So later on we will see how we calculate the EAN for a different allyl complex. So a large number of triheptoallyl complexes are known, and in such complexes, the D dash to DX metal in 3D series and 4D series, including the palladium and platinum. These metals are generally form complex with the allyl group. It is very interesting to note here that it can also act as a bridging ligand. So further, if we say when the pi allyl group is a part of the larger ligand, like suppose it is containing some bulky substituent, and the larger ligand is connected to it. In that case, it is known to form the trihepto complexes with the transition metals. Now, in addition to this trihepto type of bonding, the allylic group can also work as a sigma ligand, or in which case you can see it is behaving like a monoheptoligand. And sometimes it is also behaving like a diheptoligand. So, these are some remarkable features of the allyl group. When it is behaving like a ligand, it is showing so much flexibility, and it is ready to form a complex with a metal by its behavior. Like it can be a monoheptoligand, it can be a diheptoligand, it can be a triheptoligand, or sometimes even it is acting like a bridging ligand. So this all creates a confusion here when we go to find out the structure of the metal complex. It becomes really difficult for the allylic complex to determine the structure, because the allylic group, it can have different structures and different type of bondings are possible. So when you are going to find out the structure of a particular metal allyl complex, you need to be very careful. So in these cases, the 18 electron is very useful, and by that rule, you can actually distinguish between the trihepto and monohepto allyl types. And in addition to this, the third type of the bonding can be identified by the X-ray structure determination. So it is the basic problem with such type of complexes, their structural determination. So you can go for the 18 electron rule, you can use the X-ray structure determination, and sometimes these are also fluxional in nature. So fluxional means what? They are constantly changing the position of the bond and position of the molecule, and this is actually taking place at the room temperature. So in that case also, whatever be the structure of the complex, it does not remain constant for a very long time. Within a fraction of the second, molecule is changing its structure. So when it is attached in the form of sigma and dihepto form, the allyl derivatives, they are fluxional, with the metal changing position from one side to other of the plane comprising the three allylic carbon atoms. So here you can see the fluxional behavior of a metal allyl complex. So here you can see this metal atom is combined with, this is the allyl group, and it is forming a sigma bond with the metal, and also it is forming a pi bond with the this category of double bond. So when the fluxionality takes place, the metal is actually changing its position. Now it is going below the plane of the allyl, and after some time it is going above the plane of the allyl. So this type of change in the position of metal atom, this actually takes place so quickly, and therefore the fluxional character is also making it difficult to find out the structure, actual structure of the allyl complex. If you look at their electronic distribution, just like the alkene complex, they are also very very similar to the carbonyls. Like we have seen in case of dihepto ligands of metal alkene and metal alkyne complexes, they are very similar in many of their properties to the carbonyl. So in a similar manner, the allylic complexes, they are also very similar to the carbonyls, and the delocalized allylic system, where you cannot actually find out the position of the double bond, rather the pi electrons are delocalized over all the three carbons. So after the delocalization, it acts as a formal 3 electron donor linked to the NO ligand in metal nitrosyl derivatives. Metal nitrosyl, in that case, the NO ligand is also contributing 3 electrons. So it is very similar to that nitrosyl group. So these allylic derivatives have also been visualized as a sort of half sandwich, that is intermediate between alkene and sandwich compound. So all these points, they actually make the allylic complex very interesting to understand. Now, what are the different methods for their preparation? So several types of allylic trihepto complexes have been prepared. Some of them are monoleptic, when only one type of ligand is present, and sometimes M allyl N, only allyl group is there. And some are heteroleptic, when the along with the allylic ligand, other type of ligands are also there. So let us see what are the different types of monoleptic and heteroleptic allylic complexes. The first reaction by which we can prepare the metal allyl complex is reaction of carbonyl complex with the allyl halide. So as we know that these allyls are very similar to carbonyl, and the similar reaction was also used for the method of synthesis in alkene and alkyne complexes. So the similar reaction is also here, and the allyls are actually able to displace carbonyl from the complex. So in order to synthesize the metal allyl complex, a carbonyl is taken and then it reacts with the allyl halide. So what happens here, the allyl halide actually introduce the allyl group inside the coordination sphere. So here you can see this is the eta dash, when you do eta 1, that is monohepto, and C3H5 is the allyl group. In the second reaction, you can see one allyl is already there, and on further heating, it releases one carbonyl and it becomes trihepto. So this is a manganese allyl complex. Then the Grignard reagent can also be used here, and by using the Grignard reagent of allyl substituent, uh, RMGX is the Grignard reagent, right? So in the RMGX, you can your X can be any of the halides. So here the Cl is taken, and R is the allyl group. So when you take the Grignard reagent, allyl Grignard reagent, and react it with any of the metal halide, in that case, what happens? Homoleptic metal allyl complex is formed. So in this case, you can see the nickel is attached to two of the allyl group, and by the similar reaction, other type of metal allyl complexes can also be prepared, like other transition metals, transition titanium, zirconium, hafnium, thorium, vanadium, niobium, tantalum, chromium, molybdenum, tungsten, all these metals, including the platinum and cobalt, they also follow such reactions. So you can prepare a wide variety of uh, homoleptic metal allyl complexes from this reaction. Now, in some cases like nickel 2 and palladium 2, this reaction takes place in the equimolar ratio, and the product is M triheptoallyl X. So here heteroleptic allyl complex is formed when we are using the equimolar ratios of the metal salt and the Grignard reagent. So the Grignard reagent actually serves as a very important reagent for the preparation of homoleptic metal allyl complexes. Now, another method for preparation of metal allyl complex is protonation of complexes. Protonation is when you add proton to a certain system, that is protonation. And when you remove a proton from a system, it is deprotonation. So, protonation of certain complexes, when you do that, it results into the formation of allylic complex, like in case of tetrahepto 1,3-butadiene, when 1,3-butadiene is behaving like a tetraheptoligand and you perform the protonation reaction, so this tetrahepto actually get converts into the allylic group, substituted allyl group. So in this reaction, you can see this is a carbonyl of iron and containing the 1,3-butadiene. This is 1,3-butadiene containing two double bonds, and since it is having four carbons and all the pi electrons are delocalized over the four carbons, so it is behaving like a tetraheptoligand. So tetrahepto, this 1,3-butadiene, when HCl is added, so this HCl is providing protons to the complex, and this proton, one of the proton get adds here. So when one proton is adding here, it becomes what? It becomes the allyl, right? And the CH2 becomes CH3, and the remaining part of the butadiene becomes allylic group. And now what happens? Suddenly it is behaving like a triheptoligand. So in the second reaction, similarly, you can see we have another diene here, and this diene is actually converted into an allyl group when the protonation is performed. So protonation takes place on one of the part, and the remaining three carbons, they start behaving like a allyl moiety and get attached to the nickel L4. L4, in the L4, L could be any other type of ligand. So these are another very important reactions, and they are very simple also because you have to do only the protonation of a complex. Now, let us discuss the very important part of this lecture, that is bonding and structure. In the allylic complexes, like I have said right now, that their structural determination is very difficult. So, and it is also very tricky. So, this topic is actually very important. In the allylic group, the bonding to the metal is believed to be similar to metal alkene. In case of metal alkene, we have discussed the type of bonding, and in that case, we use Dewar-Chat-Dickinson model. And in that model, we have seen that two type of bond actually exist in the metal alkene bond. In the first place, the alkene is donating its electron to the empty orbital of metal. So in that case, bonding orbital of alkene, they are donating their filled electron to the empty hybridized metal orbital. And in the second case, pi electrons are in the second case, the metal is donating its electron density to the empty bonding molecular orbital of the alkene molecule. So similarly, you can explain the type of bonding between metal and allyl complexes. A similar Debye-Dickinson model can be used for such purpose. So in the allylic group, it donates the pi electron to the metal atom and it forms a sigma type of bond. That is the typical bond in which ligand is donating its electron to the metal atom. And according to the Debye-Dickinson model, it accepts electron into its anti-bonding pi star molecular orbital in the pi type of bond. So that is a back bond that we already discussed. So back bonding also exists in case of allylic complexes because their pi star anti-bonding MOs are empty. So they can accept the filled electron density of the metal. Now, these allylic complexes therefore involve a 3-electron delocalized allylic system. And then the triheptoallyl group is symmetrically displaced around the transition metal. So let us look at the diagram. Here you can see this is the allyl group, pi allyl anion. And here you can see we have 3 carbons, and these are the 3 unhybridized orbitals on each of the carbon. And when they will undergo LCA, that is linear combination, they will form 3 molecular orbitals. So let us discuss the 3 molecular orbitals formed on the allylic group. The first one is the Psi1 sigma donor, that is filled, and of course this will be the bonding type of molecular orbital, and this will be the HOMO of the allylic group. So Psi1, it will be the lowest in the energy and it will donate the electrons filled inside to the empty metal orbital. Second is Psi2 sigma donor, it is also filled, and the third one is the Psi3 sigma acceptor. So now you can say that the third one, the middle one is the non-bonding orbital, and the third one is the anti-bonding molecular orbital. So no electron is present in the anti-bonding molecular orbital, and therefore it remains empty. And here, the electrons can be accepted back from the metal ion. So these are the 3 molecular orbitals in case of the allylic group, which are formed by the linear combination of 3 p orbitals on each of the carbon atom. So the bonding molecular orbital is involved in the sigma bond formation with the metal, and anti-bonding molecular orbital forms a pi bond with the metal, that is a back bond. Again, the similar orbitals you can see here, the sigma 1, psi 1 sigma, it is a donor orbital and it is filled, having electron, 2 electrons will be here. Then psi 2 sigma, again it is a donor and 1 remaining electron will be here. Overall, if you say a allylic group is containing 3 electrons. So these 3 electrons are actually 2 are there in the psi 1, 1 will be there in the psi 2, and the psi 3 it is anti-bonding MO and it is empty. So the triheptoallyl group forms 2 metal donor bonds, one sigma and other pi. 2 bonds are formed along to the metal atom, and one metal to ligand d pi p pi bond. These 3 ligand molecular orbitals are obtained by linear combination of p orbitals on 3 allylic carbon atoms. So the LM electron donor bond, they are formed by the overlapping of metal s dz square and pz orbital with a psi 2. And after this, the ML back donating takes place, where when the metal dxz orbital overlap with the psi 3. So the degree of the participation of these orbitals in bonding, it depends upon their relative energy. So as I've told you that the lower energy orbital will be forming the sigma bond, which will be a stronger bond. It also depends on the radial diffuseness and orbital overlapping magnitude. So greater is the magnitude of overlapping among the orbital, stronger will be the bond. So these are the orbitals of metal taking part in the bond formation with the allylic orbitals. So this is the coordinate system x, y, z, and here you can see this is the metal s orbital. As you can see the spherical structure, this is metal s, then metal pz, then metal dx, yz, and metal dz square. These orbitals are taking part in the bond formation, and they overlap with the bonding and anti-bonding molecular orbitals on the allylic. Yeah. Now, to find out the structure of the allylic complexes, we are also using some analytical techniques, and the use of X-ray for the structural determination, it is widespread. And also the EAN rule has been used to find out the structure. So according to the EAN rule, the total number of electron, it should be the 36. So EAN is the effective atomic number of the complex. So in all, it can have 18 pairs of electrons. So here the calculation you can see in the structure 1. We have 25 electron in the metal. This is M actually. In the metal you have 25 electrons. In then 5 carbonyls you have 10 electrons. And for the allylic radical you have 1 electron, because it is behaving like a monoheptoligand, right? So total number of electron will be 36. If you add 3 electron in place of 1, like suppose you consider the allyl radical as the triheptoligand, then what will happen? It will violate the EAN rule, right? So here you have to consider the 1 electron from allyl radical, and you can establish from such calculation that allyl is actually behaving like a monoheptoligand. So again you can see here we have manganese here, and having 25 electron, then 4 carbonyls are contributing 8 electrons, and then the allyl radical is contributing 3 electrons. When you add in this manner, then in that case you get 36 electrons. So if you add only 1 electron from the allyl radical, then you are considering as a monoheptoligand. In that case it will not be 36. So, whenever you are adding electrons and you are applying the EAN rule, in that case, you must remember the total should come 36. You will take the value of electrons donated by allyl group so as to make it 36. Now, in the trihepto complexes, like this triheptoallyl nickel, the terminal 2 carbon atoms of the allyl group are at the distance of 202.9 picometer from the metal atom, and the central carbon atom is at a distance of 198.0 picometer. So you can see that the two terminal carbons are actually far away from the metal, and the central carbon atom is near to the metal. The CCC bond angle is found to be 120.5 degree, and the average carbon-carbon distance is 141.6 picometer. So the bond angle is slightly greater than the average bond angle for sp2 hybridized carbon. And here the terminal carbon atoms, they are sufficiently bent, and it results in good pi overlapping. So that is the reason behind strong pi bonding between the metal and the ligand. Then carbon-carbon distance is in accordance with the pi conjugated system. So just like in case of the conjugated system, the carbon-carbon distances according to that, and anti, that is trans from meso, are bent away from metal, and syn, when the cis from meso, they are bent towards the metal atom. So basically we can have two forms, anti and syn, in case of the metal allyl complex. So these are the two forms in this case. You can see The nickel is attached to two allyls, and if you apply the EAN rule here, the nickel is contributing 28 electrons, two allyl radicals are contributing 6 electrons. So you are considering it as a triheptoligand, and two chlorides are contributing 2 electrons. So in this case, our total will become 36 electrons, and from this calculation, you can say that both the allyls are behaving like a triheptoligand. If you count them as a monoheptoligand, in that case, the electronic contribution would be 2 electrons, and our total will not be 36 electrons. So, by this calculation, actually, you can find out that allyl radical is behaving like a triheptoligand. So in these complexes, due to the position of the carbon atom with respect to other ligands, the geometrical isomers are also known. So how you can find out the geometrical isomers, like I told you, syn and transform. So in this complex of ruthenium, you can see the mode of joining of the allyl group to the metal atom. It is making two isomers, exoisomer and endoisomers here. So this one is the exoisomer, endoisomer, and this one is the exoisomer. So endoisomer, when these two terminal carbons are directed towards the metal, and exoisomer when the two terminal carbons are directed away from the metal atom. So these are the two geometrical isomers which are simply due to the position of the two terminal carbon atoms on the allyl group with respect to the metal. Other example of such complexes is molybdenum and chromium complexes. So here you can see a complex of molybdenum, and if you count the electrons here, the molybdenum is contributing 24 electrons. Then one cyclopentadienyl is contributing 5 electrons. Two carbonyls we have here with the 2 electrons each, so we have 4 electron in total, and one allyl group, it is contributing 3 electrons. So when you count it as a 3 electron, it becomes 36 electron, and therefore you can say that the allyl bonding with the metal is trihepto by nature. This is a very simple method in which you can do the simple calculations, and you can actually predict what type of structure is present in your metal allyl complex. Another example is here of a cobalt complex. Again, you are counting the electrons and applying the EAN rule. So the cobalt atom is contributing 27 electrons. Three carbonyls we have, and they all are contributing 6 electron in total. And the allyl radical, if we consider a 3 electron contribution, in that case it becomes 36 electrons. So it says that the allyl group is contributing 3 electrons, and it is behaving like a triheptoligand. Infrared spectral studies have been widely applied for the study of allylic complexes, and they display certain characteristic features. So these characteristic features are actually visible when the metal allyl complexes in the trihepto case. They have been studied by the infrared spectroscopy, and especially in the case of the nickel 2 and palladium 2 metal complexes. So the typical observations that were made in the IR spectrum of such complexes is, the first thing is the presence of a medium intensity carbon double bond carbon anti-symmetric stretching frequency found near 1460 centimeter inverse. So it says that a conjugated double bond is present here. This is a conjugated system, and actually the position of the double bond is continuously changing. So this type of frequency is actually typical to a conjugated system. So this type of stretching frequency is observed in the IR spectrum of the complex. And the second very important observation is occurrence of a symmetric carbon double bond carbon stretching vibration. This is a symmetric vibration, right? So it is found at the 10-20 centimeter inverse, and this is forbidden in the ethylene complex. Such type of stretching vibration is not seen in ethylene. And why? Because ethylene is a symmetric molecule. But in case of allyl, one carbon is actually containing some substituent, that is generally CH3 or CH2. So, due to that asymmetry in the molecule, this symmetric vibration is also possible in such allyl complexes, and it shows that the bonding is not of sigma or sigma dihetero type. Okay, it actually shows that some sort of another group is also present in the ethylene-like complex. So, such stretching vibration in case of the ethylene complex, they are forbidden because they are not causing any change in the dipole moment. But in case of the allyl group, such symmetric vibrations, they are causing the change in the dipole moment, and therefore they are detected in the IR spectrum. Third important observation is appearance of a strong carbon hydrogen stretching vibration at exceptionally low position in some allyl complexes. Not in all allyl complex, but in some of the allyl complexes, this strong CH stretching vibration is also found, and it is at the very low position at 2850 centimeter inverse. So this shows the presence of a strong CH bond. So one of the important applications of IR spectroscopy to metal allyl derivative is the possibility of distinguishing between monohepto and trihepto type of bonding. So just like we are doing that by using the EAN rule, we can also find it out by the IR spectroscopy. By appearance or absence respectively of a bond just above 1600 centimeter inverse. So it is very easy to find out the type of bonding when you are studying the IR spectrum of such complex. So you may get a peak at 1600 centimeter inverse, whether it is present in the spectrum or not. Simply you have to observe that. So what happens? Uh, the conversion of the monohepto bonded allyl group into uh, the trihepto arrangement, how it happens, so that you can use by the NMR technique. And in the IR, by just observing the 1600 centimeter inverse peak, you can find it out. So, an example of such rearrangement which has been followed by IR and HNMR spectroscopy is shown here. So, here you can see in this manganese complex, right, you have the allyl group as a monohepto ligand, and only one carbon of the allyl is attached to the metal atom, and the remaining five ligands are carbonyl. So in the IR spectrum, because this is monohepto, so you get a peak at 1620 centimeter inverse. So you can say that it is a monohepto type of bonding. And when you study the same complex with H1 NMR spectroscopy, in that case also you get the one doublet, uh, triplet, and multiplet. So by this data, you can actually find it out that the one of the NMR peak is actually getting for the alpha carbon, and the triplet that you are getting. So by looking at the NMR data, you can find out that only one carbon is attached to the manganese. But when one carbonyl is removed from such complex, when it is heated and one carbonyl is removed, now suddenly the type of bonding changes from monohepto to trihepto. And now what happens, this characteristic peak at the 1620 centimeter inverse, it disappears. And now a peak at 1505 centimeter inverse is obtained in the IR spectrum. And when you look at the NMR spectroscopy, the H1 NMR spectroscopy, in that case you get different spectral data. That is, you get a doublet for exo-H, right? This H is actually now producing another type of peak in the NMR spectroscopy, and then for endo-H also you are getting a different doublet. So you can, in all, you can observe 9 lines in the spectrum. So simply by changing the mode of the bonding from monohepto to dihepto type of ligand, actually you can study the difference in the bonding, and you can find out what sort of bonding actually takes place. in the metal allyl complexes. Now, moving towards the chemical properties of such complexes. So the important reactions of triheptoallyl complexes are first is the insertion reaction, where the insertion of another ligand takes place. Then second is the metal exchange. Third is the halide exchange. Fifth is the displacement reaction, and finally the nucleophilic reactions. So let us see the insertion reactions of metal allyl complex. Here you can see platinum allyl complex, and it is also having triphenyl phosphine PPH3 as a ligand. And when the insertion of the carbonyl takes place here, this is actually inserted between the metal and the allyl ligand. The CO is getting inserted here, and now the resulting the product that is formed here, it could be cis or trans. In another reaction here, insertion of the carbonyl takes place in the allyl group, and this finally results into a gamma lactone. So metal is lost in the final step of the reaction, and a gamma lactone is formed. So this could be a very important reaction for synthesis of gamma lactones. Second type of reactions are metal exchange reaction, when the metal are exchanged, and this is simply what transmetallation reaction. So here you can see the palladium X attached to the allyl group, and when it reacts with mercury, mercury is getting inserted inside the coordination sphere, and these are the other two byproducts formed after the reaction. So the metal is exchanged from palladium to mercury. Similarly, in this reaction, you can see we have palladium complex. When it reacts with the cobalt complex, this cobalt complex gets attached with the allyl group, and by using the PPH3, uh, again the PPH3 is getting inserted inside. So the metal is exchanged from palladium to cobalt, and now the cobalt is attached to the allyl group. Third reaction of metal allyl complexes are the exchange reaction. How the ligands are exchanged. So here we have a platinum complex, and the allyl groups are attached by trihepto bonding. Again, you have EPH3 here reacting with the complex. So this EPH3 actually is the exchange with one of the ligand, and one C3H5, it actually becomes cyclopentadienide. One allyl converts into cyclopentadienide. So in the next reaction, you have a homoleptic type of chromium allyl complex reacting with triphenyl phosphine and PF3 uh, trifluorophosphine, and this PF3 actually it is very strong ligand, and this PF3 replaces the allyl ligand from the complex, and the ligand is exchanged. Then again, NO is attacking on a cobalt allyl complex, and it is replacing the allyl group. So allyl is getting exchanged with the nitrosyl group. Next, we have halide exchange reaction. So here the halides are getting exchanged. So here we have a palladium complex having a bridging ligand here, and it is reacting with the thallium cyclopentadienide. So what happens here? The halide that is present inside the coordination sphere, it is getting outside, and in exchange, one ligand is provided inside the complex. So halide is getting exchanged with the ligand. The last and very important reaction of metal allyl complex is the nucleophilic attack. Nucleophilic attack on the metal, as you can see, this is the palladium complex, and it is having an allyl ligand attached here. And what happens? The nucleophilic attack of a ligand takes place uh, on the palladium, and now what happens? The ligand is actually attaching itself to the palladium metal. So this is a nucleophilic attack on the metal, which takes place by a ligand. In the second reaction, the terminal carbon of the allyl group is getting the nucleophilic attack. So in this type of complex of molybdenum, you can see OME, that is a strong nucleophile, it attacks. and on the terminal carbon it gets attached. This is nucleophilic attack on the terminal carbon of the allyl group. Now that is all for the allylic group and its bonding and structure and formation of the metal allyl complexes. Now, from the today's lecture, I have some questions for you, and I would like you to note them down in your copy and find out their answers from the today's lecture study material. So, I have a few fill in the blanks here. The first question is the blank structure of allyl group show that it is dash electron donor dash ligand or dash electron donor dash ligand in its behavior. So the which structure of allyl group is showing that it is behaving as a two type of ligand. This we discussed in the starting of the lecture. So it is behaving like two different type of ligands, and what are they? When the allyl group is contributing one electron, it is one electron donor or monohaptoligand, and when it is contributing three electrons, it is three electron donor or trihaptoligand. Then position of the allylic derivative may be considered between blank and blank type of compound. What two type of compounds are considered to be very near in their property to the allylic derivatives? Next, in the L to M dative bond are formed as a result of overlapping of metal which orbitals. So I have mentioned a few orbitals of metal which take part in the bond formation along with the allylic system. And what are the orbitals of the ligand involved with the bonding in the metal atom? Then in the next question, the trihaptocomplexes. Because of the CCC bond angle being 120.5 degree and average distance 198 pm, the terminal dash atoms are dash so that effective dash may take place. So you need to find out what are these terms. Last one is again related to the bonding and structure of the allyl complexes. The asymmetric frequency carbon double bond carbon is obtained here, which obtained here. You have to find out the value of the frequency at which you get a peak in the IR spectroscopy, and carbon double bond carbon symmetry frequency is obtained here. What is the value of the frequency here? So you have to find out the two very characteristic IR frequencies of the bonds here. So the symmetric and asymmetric, you have to write down both the frequencies of IR spectra in metal allyl complexes. All the points are taken from this book. That is all for today's lecture from my side. Thank you so much.